Hello, friends. Is it easier to manage smart or stupid people? It's a tricky question, actually. It depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to form a strong team and achieve great results, then you should surround yourself with smart and educated people. I've managed enormously large teams for many years and have always preferred employees who are capable of self-development. If your goal is obedience and the status quo, then of course, education and self-motivation are not your top priorities. Recently, Russia adopted amendments to its laws and guidelines on education. These amendments were immediately the subject of well-reasoned criticism from the scientific and education community. Let's take a look at the explanatory note for these amendments. The lack of appropriate legal regulation creates the preconditions for the uncontrolled implementation of a wide range of propaganda activities by anti-Russian forces in the school and student environment under the guise of educational activities. So what does the Russian government propose to do? They want to regulate education. Here's what they added to the law. Educational activities under federal law are defined as activities carried out outside of educational programs aimed at disseminating knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, experience, and competence for the purpose of intellectual, spiritual, moral, creative, physical, and/or professional human development, and the satisfaction of educational needs and interests. I'm sure that Russian laws are purposely written in such language, so that no one can possibly understand them. So, what do these amendments actually mean? Let's say you decide to publish a YouTube video on how to fish. Well, it's the spreading of skills and abilities, so now it's regulated by law. Or let's say you want to mention the existence of the 10 Commandments in your blog. Well, this is the dissemination of values and attitudes, also regulated by law. Discussing the evolution of galaxies on social networks, or Tolstoy's novels, or Darwin's theories. These are educational needs and interests in their purest form, regulated by law. Notice how none of these have anything to do with education, kids, or school? Some might say that I'm overreacting, that I'm exaggerating. After all, the government is simply trying to protect us from false preachers, pseudoscientists, info-gypsies, and other nonsense. Clumsily, but it's trying. Let's take a closer look, though. Here's part of the speech delivered by the president of the Russian Science Institute, and more importantly, the brother of Putin's friend and consigliere, Mikhail Khodorkovsky. Today, for the first time in the history of civilization, it has become possible to create a custom-made human. The uterus is not a very complex organ. You take an artificial uterus and use it as an incubator, just like the ones used for hatching chicks. Then you plant everything you need into a test tube. You shorten the gestation period, cut out the functions in the DNA that you don't want, and you get the person you do want, and as many as you want. Today it is possible. It is an absolute fact. Nonsense, full of conspiracy theories under the guise of scientific facts, from the head of a state scientific institute. To isolate citizens from this nonsense, you don't need to adopt a new set of laws. Just fire that person. This guy works for a government-funded institute. At the very least, don't show it on state TV. Or take Medinsky, an assistant to Vladimir Putin. The list of his delusional statements is simply infinite. One day he's telling you that Russians have an extra chromosome. Just a reminder, an extra chromosome is a sign of Down syndrome. The next day, he's trying to convince you that Stalin wasn't responsible for mass repressions. How many times has Medinsky been caught up in a lie, a pseudoscientific statement, or just plain delirium? You couldn't count them all. Google probably has a separate server for storing all of Medinsky's pearls. The penalty for constantly spewing lies? 8 years as a Minister of Culture, then a promotion to Assistant to the President. Let's keep going. The head of the presidential administration writes articles about a non-existent device which supposedly allows the study of the collective consciousness of humanity. The Secretary of the Security Council, Patrushev, not only uses fake quotations from Madeleine Albright, but also steers state policy based on her words, which again, she never said. You're probably wondering why I'm mentioning all these people. It's not to show that ignorant people are in power, although unfortunately they are. My main point is that the state doesn't need to adopt separate laws to suppress anti-scientific public activity. It just needs to clean its ranks. It could all be done with a phone call. They are just civil servants after all. But it's not happening. It's clear the government's goal is not to improve education, In fact, it has nothing to do with education. The Russian government is in an all-out war against those trying to spread, as the law puts it, knowledge, abilities, skill, experience, and competencies. Why is this happening? Because this government doesn't need or want educated people. Educated people are dangerous. Education is a constant threat for the Russian government. In a rare moment of finesse and skill, it managed to equate education with the implementation by anti-Russian forces of a wide range of propaganda measures aimed at discrediting the state policy pursued in the Russian Federation, revising history, and undermining the constitutional order. Imagine this nightmare. School children attend a lecture on the history of the Russian state and its laws, and wonder why we need a seemingly irreplaceable leader. Dangerous thoughts indeed. If youngsters are allowed to read about economics, they will be amazed to find out that people in other countries are getting richer, all while we're led by self-enriching politicians actively working to widen the poverty gap. As Russia has seen before, these kinds of thoughts are the sparks that lead to an overthrow of the constitutional system, or what the authorities understand by the constitutional system, that they can do what they want while everyone else stays silent. That's not a quote from the Constitution, yet. An uneducated population with no knowledge of its rights is the backbone of this Russian government. Putin is delighted that his population doesn't know how badly the country is being governed, or how much of its money is lining the pockets of his friends. I'll repeat it again. The Russian authorities don't need smart and educated citizens. These people are harder to manage. It becomes more and more difficult for them to endlessly explain that black is white and that injustice is fair. In general, there is a clear pattern. If your access to information is restricted in one way or another, then you are being manipulated. And this is definitely not for your benefit. Thank you for watching this video. Like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications bell to stay tuned. Goodbye.